So, thank you for staying, everyone, for this presentation. I'll try and keep it brief. I'm going to apologize in advance for there's a lot of verbiage on some of the slides, so I'll ask your forgiveness for that right at the beginning. So what this is about is enhancing and improving our church's impact to improve our surrounding community's environment and beyond. Oh, okay, I can. All right, sorry. Okay, stand on the spot. All right. So what can we do to do that? To enhance and improve our involvement with our congregation and our church, but at the same time have a positive impact on ourselves physically and spiritually, and feel like we're contributing to the health and well-being of our church, ourselves, our community, and truly God's creation, be better stewards of the environment. Next slide, please. So I came across a term when I was surfing the net and came across, I checked the Guardian UK website fairly frequently. As a matter of fact, I probably do it 2-3 times a day. I'm a bit of a news hound, so I look at news across the world, decide to try and give myself a bit of a balance on what's occurring in the world, because there's a lot of misinformation. But I came across this term, mini forest. And I looked at it and thought, what would be the benefit for our church? What would be the cost? And would it be worth doing here? Next slide, please. And there's a link here I'll talk about shortly. So what mini forest is, it's a term that originated out of Japan to describe small forests that are planted in a very tiny area, small as a basketball court or a tennis court, in other words, about 10 meters by 10 meters. And they're very tiny, but they're becoming quite popular in Europe. So in Paris, in the Netherlands, they're planting these because their cities are becoming effectively heat domes, similar to what we experienced this summer here, but much worse. And what it typically involves is planting native tree samplings about a meter apart. And in our case, we're going to be doing some 2 meters apart, kind of to commemorate COVID. But the current research is showing, based on scale, these forests are more ecologically diverse and greater benefit to the environment than larger, more conventional forests. In terms of ecological diversity, in terms of overall maintenance and the like, and they're roughly about the same in terms of carbon sequestration, in terms of how much carbon they absorb. That's a really tough one to measure, so it's an estimate, but basically these forests over time become a biomass. We're going to propose to do a modified version of this here. We're not going to go a meter apart because within 3 to 5 years you wouldn't be able to walk within that forest. It'd just be so dense. Next slide, please. So last fall we created a committee, more or less, and came up with an action list, and we started meeting every couple weeks, every month. We talked to our maintenance people here, and we came up with a site that could be generated for, or be used as a mini forest. It's just to the left of us here, and it's about a 10 meter by 12 meter grid. And it's between Elbow Drive and the church. We applied for a grant through Calgary Foundation. We got the contact through the Southwood Community Association to Teresa McLaren, and we managed to apply and get $7,500 to help subsidize the creation of this forest. Planting is going to occur on Sunday, September 26th. Trees have been ordered and shrubs. There's 60 trees, 30 trees and shrubs each, to commemorate our 60th anniversary as a congregation as well. And again, the 2 meter spacing for some of them, largely to commemorate COVID as well. Partners have been Southwood Community Association, their gardening group, pardon the, if you pick up my typo, excuse that, Calgary Foundation and Polk Point Tree Farm. It's a nursery that typically just sells indigenous plants that are indigenous can grow in this part of the province. So what we've done is order those shrubs and trees, just largely specific, that are native to this part of the province. Next slide, please. So how would an initiative like this benefit us as a church? Next slide. Well, I think it's going to enhance and improve our congregation's involvement and our respective impact on our environment and general social well-being. It's going to feel like we're contributing to the health and wellness of ourselves, the community, and God's creation. And basically, aside from what I'm going to talk about shortly, it's not going to have any budgetary impact on the church. Next slide, please. You can't see this too well, but this just, in that little red square, indicates where that the forest is going to be. Again, it's just to my right, past the windows, where we really have minimal windows that look out on Elbow Drive. So there'll be some trees there. It's towards Austin Manor, but just before we hit them, and some of the trees there. So there's a square about 10 meters by 12 meters, or a rectangle. Next slide, please. Benefits. Next slide. Well, you may or may not like this, but really going to ask people to sponsor a tree or a shrub. So this is not a freebie. It could be a freebie, but it's not. It's going to be $20 a shrub, about $50 a tree for those who choose to participate, largely because I think if we don't contribute and we just expect somebody else to pay for it, we don't have any skin in the game. So people and their families or their families are asked to sponsor a tree or shrub, because what it's going to require you to do is come and look after that tree or shrub. There'll be a plaque that's generated for you. You can decide on the verbiage for whatever tree or shrub you want to plant, because this is a legacy thing. So it's going to be there for as long, hopefully, as this church is here. But your family is expected to look after it. Now you may say, well, Claus, that's easy for you to say. We don't have any family here anymore. Our son has moved away. My husband has died, or my wife has died. How am I supposed to do this? Well, you reach out to your friends in the congregation, or we actually have an elementary school right across the street, and we can talk to Kathy Bishop and see if they want to come over and help maintain whatever tree, shrub you want. But it's also a teaching moment for them about this type of forest, what it brings to the community, what it brings to our environment, and the like. Ultimately, we can make it what we want. We can have benches there if we want. There'll likely be funds there. We got $7,500, so there will be some money there for things like that, and you can come and have your coffee, tea there. When I read our Thursday Thoughts, I think it is, there's always, coffee at Tim's in Brayside. Well, you can have coffee here and make it here on 10 o'clock on Tuesday mornings, what have you, and come to church and start building more of a community. The information, there's going to be more information coming, but there will be somebody here on September 5th, 12th, and 19th to answer further questions anybody has that I can't answer today, but also to you can see what kind of shrubs and trees we'll have, and you can decide what you want to sponsor. It's going to be first come, first serve. And on the 26th, after service, lunch is going to be sponsored. You can have your lunch and then go out, and the holes will already be pre-dug, and it's just a question of planting your tree, watering it, and the like. And your name will be associated with every tree or shrub you decide to sponsor. There's roughly 30 indigenous trees and 30 indigenous shrubs to choose from. There'll be literature on each one provided. So you'll get a bit of a description about the tree or shrub, how to look after it, and the like, and a little bit more about it. So you won't have to go online to figure out how do I look after this thing. Next slide, please. I really want to acknowledge some people who've helped here. Number one is my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and my friend right behind me, because without him, I couldn't be doing any of this. I've got a really busy life, work-wise, family-wise, and I'm not sure how I got this far without a lot of prayer, and I have people praying for this. I want to thank my wife and children, church council that's allowed me to go ahead and try and do this. Teresa McLaren from Southwood Community, she put me onto the Calgary Foundation, got the funding for that. Julie Black, who helped with the grant application. Betty Jane Hegret, who's been very supportive of it and given me some heads up. Carolyn Seifert Lewis, who asked a critical question. So what kind of plants are you going to require? Are they going to be indigenous? Can people plant the Manitoba maple? Can they do Honeycrisp apple tree? The answer, frankly, is no, you can't. It's indigenous to this part of the province. Alex and Sandy Schmidt here have been very helpful. Barb Nickel, again, they plant these seeds in my mind of, have you thought about this? No, I didn't. Good question. Helmut Hofer, he came and helped move some soil over. Rob Thomas, Kathy Bishop with their sons, Max and Lucas, whether they know it or not, they're going to be helping some more, move dirt. And Lindsay Sonatog from Bull Point Nursery, really helpful to choose the indigenous plants and shrubs we should go with. And the last one, just praise God for this, because without him, this wouldn't be happening, I can tell you that. So, I'm open to questions. I'll answer whatever I can, and feel free to fire away.
Do we know what are indigenous trees here for our area?
Well, she knows. I mean, I've had to rely on her, but things like river alders, junipers. Pardon me? I don't have them right here, no. I just got the invoice with the names late Thursday night. Sure, okay.
Go ahead, Sandy.
I'm just wondering if in your plot, when you have all those trees and shrubs, do you actually have it plotted out so people don't go all on this side?
It'll all be plotted out. Well, it's all going to be described beforehand.
So the question is, in the design of the plot, if there's a design for where the trees go, so it's not really lopsided or all clumped in one area,
No,
but it's
all going to be pre-selected for us. So people can see what it's going to be, likely be up next week, and they go, oh, I want my tree. I want that one. It's going to go there. But you had Fred, you had an earlier question that we didn't, I'm not sure we answered properly.
Yeah, I just thought that we could mention some of the indigenous trees.
There'll be a list. There's going to be about 18 to 20 types of trees and shrubs that are indigenous here that'll be, you'll be able to look at next week.
like birches, spruces,
There's
poplars,
birches,
firs.
junipers, there's no fir.
No
Fir
fir,
is
okay.
very hard to, and they grow like 200 feet. So
Okay.
it's, and they're hard to maintain in this type of environment, but you got things like alders, no, we're not going, well, we could decide on Paskapoo poplars, but the list I got didn't include them. It's kind of thankful because they really can bloom and cause headaches. But anyway, there's buffalo berries, junipers, things of that nature. Birches, alders, aspens.
Yeah, my son planted some aspen in his backyard.
Yep.
How many did you plant?
At least 20. You have a nice aspen.
Yeah.
Oh, question back here.
I have a concern about how the plot that's been chosen is going to affect the deck of the manor next door.
It's going to be quite a ways away from that manor.
But when the trees grow, the trees, the way that plot has been staked out, those trees are going to grow and completely not cover over, but block the sun.
No, they're not
for the
going to block
people
the
in that
sun.
deck.
We've already looked at that, Catherine. They're not going to block the sun. The sun comes this way, and we looked at that. They're not going to block the sun. And we can decide, I mean, when I've gone over and looked, you already have trees over there that are there. They're not going to be,
But there aren't trees in front of their deck.
it's not going to be in front of their deck.
Okay, that's
Yep.
great. I really
Yep.
want to hear that because I'm here a lot.
Yep.
And I know how much the residents of that manor use that as a seating area.
I know, I've gone over and
especially in
talked
the
to them
evening.
3 times.
And I also have a concern about what plans are in place for the maintenance of these trees.
So each person who sponsors is required to maintain the tree. That's on them. That's why you're you've got some skin in the game to pay, and after 3 to 5 years, largely these become maintenance-free.
Well, actually, they don't become maintenance.
Actually,
That's-
Catherine, they do. That's what the science says. So we can choose to believe it or not, but that's what it says. But regardless, each person who purchases and sponsors a tree, their family, and if they can't, they have to find somebody to do it on their behalf, or they shouldn't be sponsoring it.
I'm looking at the 45 trees we already have in our yard. We already have 45 trees on our property, and of those, one is dead and has been dead for a long time. And we have probably 6 or 8 trees that are extremely distressed. And we need to take care of the trees we already have because they are showing signs of great distress. And they do require maintenance, they require watering, and I know that because I haul water for many of them.
Fair
And
enough. Well,
so
that's-
I just am also concerned if we're going to plant another 50 trees, that there is some really great recognition on everyone's part that they aren't maintenance-free, that they do require watering, they do require maintenance, and that that's an investment in the future as well,
Yeah.
that has to be made.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. The one thing with this is there'll be a plaque generated for each tree, for each family, so it's a reason to come and visit. And if people want to sponsor existing trees, that's probably not a bad way to approach it. And have people actually take ownership of what we have here. Because right now, it's like we come to church, and there's an expectation that somebody else is going to look after it. That somebody needs to be us. There's a hose out front, from what I've seen, and so you won't be needing to bring water from home.
So the question is, in essence,
Go ahead.
where do we access water to take care of the trees?
Sorry, yeah, there's a hose out the front, and it's a long hose attached. You can take it right down there, no problem at all. Put a spray gun and go for it.
How do we decide on this on location?
That was done in conjunction with Gates and Dennis, and we looked at where the various best location would be for this, and that's what was decided.
I'm just worried about if the rabbits come and they get spooked and they run on the whole drive.
You're going to have that issue. You got hares that get spooked. And, well, they get spooked. Actually, where I work, I've got magpies that chase the hares onto the road and then go for their leftovers. But here, I think there's some protection here, so maybe they'll be the other way around. They'll come and stay protected within the forest and shrubs. Any other questions? Yeah.
What does ELCOC mean?
Evangelical Lutheran Church of the Cross.
It's the acronym for the whole name, yeah.
Yeah.
And to answer Mr. Fred's question, if you look at Bow Point Nursery, their website, Bow Point Nursery, they are just west of Calgary, and it is a nursery that has indigenous plants for this area. If you look at their website, you can find out a lot of names that way.
Yeah. Sorry? Well, I hope all these grow well.
Aspen trees go really well.
Aspens grow really well, yep.
I just wanted to let you know, Fred, the aspen tree, I went with the kids on a field trip to Layton Center when they were in kindergarten and elementary school. If you rub your hands on the aspen tree, you'll see the powder. That's a sunscreen that the indigenous people used for centuries. They're very cool trees. That's why I said, are we planting
Yeah.
aspen? because they're really neat trees.
Bingo.
The trees and bushes that you have purchased, do they have a life expectancy, and do we have to replenish every once in a while, or do they sucker? Do you know what I mean by sucker? Yeah, fresh roots. Do we need to worry about that?
So the question is, do we need to worry about suckers from these plants? In other words,
I just don't want to buy a tree that dies and it's got my name on it.
well, eventually, they're going to die. But the thing is that then it's a legacy thing, so if they're going to eventually die, hopefully somebody within the family comes and you check it and you go and replace that tree or shrub. So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about here. If you go to Scandinavia and you look at their graveyards, some of them are absolutely spectacular and they go back generations. But what I didn't realize, and I'm originally from Sweden, is I have family in Sweden who has to go and look after the grave sites because the church doesn't look after them. There's a family member who goes and looks after my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather's grave. And that's what this is about. This is about getting a generational switch for people to come in and continue to look after this. These trees, what have you. Catherine raises a really good point. We've got trees that have died, etc. But I don't know if we have really taken ownership as a congregation of this place and what we've been given. And this really is what this is about. So there's other trees that need the nourishment and health, and we need to take ownership of that. We can't just expect others to do it on our behalf.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There is a high death rate of plants because we live in the Calgary Chinook zone, which is extremely harsh on plants. So we just have to accept the fact that some of our plants will not survive. And we cannot be too hard on ourselves because the best landscapers in the city have a real challenge just keeping trees alive. So, just doing the best you can is maybe all we can hope for.
We have a crossbeams coming out this week. Can you shoot us a list of all the indigenous plants that?
I'll share a list. I have the list now. I've got to ask some questions about a couple of them.
Okay.
Because I'm not clear if they're a shrub or a tree actually when I Google, but I'll share that list probably tomorrow or Tuesday,
Okay.
if that's early enough.
Tomorrow would be best.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
It looks like we might be at the end of our time.
Okay, well, if anybody has further additional questions, my name is in the book or directory, and feel free to contact me, give me a call, or I'll stick around. I'll be here from roughly 9 till noon, from here on in till the 26th every Sunday, so feel free to continue asking questions, and you'll see more information shared next week. There'll be a display up showing where the trees and the like will be.
So the important date is September 26th.
6th.
And that's the day where hopefully by then folks will have decided what trees they want to sponsor, and then we're going to show up and plant them all together.
We plant them together, we water them, and and bring your families, bring your grandchildren, what have you. This is a congregational event. Lunch will be served, so you don't have to worry about bringing a lunch, what have you. It'll be catered, and so it's really around bringing the community together.
Okay. And just on behalf of the congregation, I'd like to thank you, Klaus, for heading this thing up and doing the tons of groundwork you've been doing.
Well, no, this
getting grants, and it's all.
Give this guy the credit. Like I said, I've got a pretty busy job. I've got 2 kids in university. We got a lot going on, and so this has been a sidebar, and somehow this is coming to fruition. And don't ask me how; it's just happening. So, give credit to Christ.
In the name of Christ, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think that concludes our time. Thank you very much for sticking around. Go have some lunch.